Round 1 of Week 5 of the Americas GM is just about to begin. It's PNC versus Bloodyface. And yeah, we are starting strong. It's going to be one of the Cyclone Mages versus Rogue.
Yeah, and interestingly, Bloodyface is bringing, what are we calling it? Raiding Party Rogue? Weapon Rogue?
Let's take a look, one at a time. Let's take a look at PNC's
Sure.
deck list just to get into this. There you go. It's Mana, Cyclone, Rogue. Not the Freeze, Rogue Mage, rather. Not the Freeze Mage that we've been seeing quite a bit of that Galen was just talking about with Disgust a few moments ago. Anything exciting to say about this deck?
We've seen a lot of people in Cyclone Mage taking one Frostbolt. Some people have tested two, but a lot of people settled on just one to have a bit of a better early game against some more aggressive decks. We see PNC also including one copy of Twilight Drake in his main list. Another card people have been including, not for aggro, however for Warrior, just to have a bit of an extra oomph in the early game leading up to your Giant or later on turns, other big things you can do. Otherwise, we see a lot of Banana Buffoons, no Sandbinders. We've seen that fall out of favor a little bit. A few people are still running them, but I've seen a lot of people just opt for the Banana Buffoons and say, yeah, Sandbinder comes down a little bit too late for me to want to play out, or they find better cards that have in their minds a better utility.
Well, should we take a look at Bloodyface's list and see what this is facing up against? Like you said, it's going to be the Raiding Party Rogue, so lots of aggression here. We've got all of the Pirates, we've got a Fairy Dragon, which seems very well suited against Mage. And of course, that Waggle pick with the Leroy and the Captain Greenskin for a lot of late game damage.
Very, very aggressive deck here coming out from Bloodyface. And we talked about this a bit behind the scenes a little. I think Bloodyface may have looked at the past decks that his two opponents this week have played.
Yep.
And we identified that PNC had played Cyclone Mage a little bit more than any of the other decks. So it's possible that Bloodyface tried to go for a super aggressive game plan, expecting PNC to bring something like Cyclone Mage.
Well, it did pay off, as it seems to me at least that this very aggressive Rogue should be quite heavily favored against the Cyclone Mage.
Yeah, it's definitely a good matchup. We'll see if Bloodyface can capitalize on that.
Yeah, I would expect so. I mean, again, I've tested the decks a little bit over the last few days. It's just very difficult for the Mage to survive to the point where they make the big plays, where they get down the Antonidas, where they, summoning all the Giants. It's just they're just dead before that.
Yeah, the kind of decks Bloodyface is bringing, like this, for example, is really not giving Mage a chance to stick on the board. It's just, I'm not going to give you any time. I'm just going to hit you in the face until you can't play stuff.
Yeah, and again, this is one of those matches that I mentioned earlier. Is very important because Bloodyface is sitting on 2 wins and 6 losses. PNC is sitting on 3 wins and 5 losses. So we're at that point where now if Bloodyface loses this, he really is just completely out of the contention, if he's not already. And the same can be said for PNC. If he's losing this game, it's looking less and less likely that he can qualify for playoffs as well. Only the top 3 players in each division qualify for playoffs, so it's important that they get these wins in.
Yeah, we're getting at the point where we talked about this a lot early on with me and Raven when I was on the first couple of weeks in Asia Pacific region. Starting off the first loss or two, you can kind of shrug off and say, okay, we can come back stronger. But we're getting at the point where you can't take any more losses. Otherwise, like you said, that you won't be able to get that top 3 spot.
Well, it's the funny illusion in this type of tournament where it sort of feels like the first few games aren't as important. But in reality, every single one does count as we are jumping into the first game of the day for the Americas region.
Oh.
And what do you think about these mulligans?
So I'm thinking, well, from PNC's perspective, he probably really wants to keep Arcane Intellect. You can consider keeping Mana Cyclone as well. He's on the coin, and he has an extra card in hand because of going second. So he might be able to officially use the Mana Cyclone. He has the card draw that he wants. From Bloodyface's perspective, he's running the one of Fairy Dragon, which is perfect to play on curve going first, too. Occasionally, if you have something like Evil Miscreant in your hand and you're going second as the Rogue, you might forego the Fairy Dragon to coin that out, but you could even just play the Fairy Dragon. But going first, you don't have that many options, so having the one of Fairy Dragon just to play exactly on 2 is exactly what Bloodyface wants to see. And we also see him keep the Sap.
With a main deck Fairy Dragon, it's such an indication that he was expecting to play against Mage. As you said before, it just looks like Bloodyface's prep this week was on point.
Yeah, Henge Clan Thug included in the main list as well. A lot of people haven't been running these in what we've seen in normal Tempo Rogues lately, but it is something a bit more popular in the raiding party list that we've had in the past.
It's a somewhat awkward combo now, though, isn't it? Because, Fairy Dragon on 2, then you're aggroing on 2 into the Henge Clan.
But even just having minion pressure, even without developing the dagger for the Henge Clan, a 3-2 and a 3-3, PNC is only running 1 Frostbolt in his main list, so anything that sticks and does repeating damage is very powerful. Ooh, PNC with the Elemental Evocation draw here. means that he can coin Arcane Intellect and then develop a Cyclone. The Cyclone contests the Fairy Dragon, he gets 3 extra spells, sets up for another turn 3 play where he can go either Arcane Intellect or Banana Buffoon if he so chooses, which leads him up to a very healthy Twilight Drake on turn 4 if he so chooses.
Yeah, gotta say, that's worked out very well indeed. And you know, Ice Barrier, great tool against the aggressive rogue deck. A little bit of extra health comes in handy. Magic Trick, that's potentially a secret.
These are some good pickups.
You know?
Arcane Explosion can help clean up some lackeys as well.
And now the first sort of decision for bloodyface, I guess. He makes it pretty quickly, he just plays the Henge Clan, it makes sense. I was wondering if there was any world in which he eviscerates to try and prevent the trade on the Fairy Dragon.
I think it's worth considering because the Fairy Dragon is very difficult to deal with. You can't, PNC can't ping it, PNC can't Ray of Frost it or anything like that. But the Henge Clan Thug is also a threat in itself, so if PNC chooses to trade the Cyclone to the Henge Clan and ping it off, I think bloodyface is okay with that.
Big draw for PNC here, though, with the second mana Cyclone.
With second Evocation in hand as well.
Yep.
It's almost exactly the kind of start you want from PNC's perspective.
It's also too many cards, isn't it?
But now you start getting, this is crazy too. It's turn 3. PNC's already has like 4, 5, 6 different like ways he can take this game, and it's really interesting seeing the Cyclone Mage start like this. Occasionally you're pigeonholed into some plays where maybe you only have an Arcane Intellect and then you have to wait till the Giant's playable. But when you have something like this, it's definitely interesting to see how players can shine in their decision making and trying to find the lines they think are the best.
I feel like it's really difficult to not at least play Magic Trick this turn, because Magic Trick into Ray of Frost, into Frostbolt to deal with the Henge Clan, something like that. Seems like it works regardless of what else happens, but
Interesting.
What is this? Gonna just play the Evocation for the 1 extra spell from the Mana Cyclone. It's also a lot of tempo. He develops 2 minions this way.
Right, he develops 2 minions this way, and also means his hand, I believe, is not quite full, so that he doesn't burn a card. This was interesting, I like this. Both of these together contest the Henge Clan Thug. If bloodyface were to dagger and swing, the Henge Clan would go up to 4 health, still killable. But bloodyface did pick up the backstab, which is a good pickup.
That's really nice. His hand is so heavy right now, though, and we're really seeing the problem with not daggering up to turn 2, because it looks like he's going to find the dagger this turn, but it's like, what were the options now? Dread Corsair for 4, into Captain Greenskin on 5 with no weapon.
It's kind of yucky. I do like developing the dagger this turn.
Yeah.
You have the Greenskin, you kind of just want to play that out. This is good. Powerful push. The sap that bloodyface kept, he is running 2 in his main list. Again, if you're expecting to face Cyclone Mage, having 2 saps doesn't hurt. Some people still just like 1. Oh my god. So with the preparation, bloodyface can go Greenskin, prep sap, push the most tempo as much as possible. That's what preparation does. Continue to push with the upgraded Wicked Dagger, and continue to buff with the Henge Clan Thug.
Yes, all good, but his hand is a single Dread Corsair. Losing the mirror image is pretty big for PNC, but bloodyface, yes, he has a board. His hand is 1 card, it's Dread Corsair. Sure. And there are cards he can draw that sort of fix this situation. Leroy could be enough to get over the edge. Myra's, obviously, is in the deck. Raiding Party would be good. Evil Miscreant would be good, but failing one of those cards, bloodyface is one deadly poison, 1 deckhand, whatever else gets drawn. It's not going to be enough, and PNC will just freeze this board and freeze it until he can deal with it. So if bloodyface doesn't pick up these resources, he's going to end up running out of steam soon.
True. A couple things to note, though. With the minions this large, something like a Frost Nova plus Rare Frost won't exactly clear up too much. PNC can perhaps kill off a Greenskin if you were to even have that. We can see that he only has 2 Frost Novas and not much else to help deal with this. But this is kind of what the aggressive rogue does. It's not like Spirit of the Shark rogue, where you kind of have a lot more value generation. You have Blink Boxes, Henge Clan Burglars, stuff like that. This is a very all-in, I'm throwing everything at you as fast as I can and trying to end the game before you can do your big fancy turns.
Frostbolt's a pretty great pickup, though.
It is not bad.
Just anything that has the word freeze on it, really, is going to do the job for PNC here. Opts to leave the Henge Clan Thug intact here. Leroy Jenkins wouldn't quite be lethal, but it's getting close.
Edwin's not the worst draw. It's something playable that at least...
Okay, yes and no, right?
Okay.
Yes, because it's playable, this is pressure, great. No, because there's still 2 Frost Novas available to PNC, but in his hand. And now if bloodyface draws Evil Miscreant or Raiding Party, there's no combo.
He'll have to wait for a turn, right? The Raiding Party he could even just play out. He is running 2 South Sea deckhands, so just playing the Raiding Party to get the burst damage is okay, although he might think he needs to hold on if he were to draw that to be able to activate it for the waggle pick.
Interesting.
From PNC's point here, even with the Frost Nova, to kind of delay the game a bit, he doesn't have anything else to develop here. He can play the Ice Barrier this turn, which I'm expecting him to do. It's kind of hard to find another line here that keeps him alive and gives him a bit more of an extension for the future turns. But just playing the Frost Nova isn't quite enough. Frost Nova this turn, sure, you delay the game by a turn. Frost Nova the second turn, let's say the turn after, great, and then he can develop a Twilight Drake, but that's 4 power. How is that going to help you deal with the Henge Clan Thug, the Edwin, and the Dread Corsair? So, I do agree with what you're saying. Bloodyface is kind of out of resources at this point, but that's fine, I think.
You're right. I mean, the double freeze available to PNC, it's just stalling. And you know, looking through the list, it's not like Freeze Mage. Maybe that's the mistake I'm making. I'm comparing it, I'm thinking it like Freeze Mage. I'm expecting a Blizzard to appear. Not Flame Strike, but you know, all of the big board clears, and it's not going to happen. PNC needs to have these little bits of incremental damage. Not even using the Frost Nova now. He's got 8 extra health available to him from that Ice Barrier, but...
It's possible he's trying to delay a bit more. I'm sure PNC sees the same line we do. Freeze Barrier into Freeze Twilight Drake. The problem is there's no Conjurer's Calling in hand. He can't do much else with Twilight Drake, and after those 2 Frost Novas are used up, that's it, they're gone. There's no more AoE freezes in the deck. There are Ray of Frost, which can help freeze 2 things at once, but maybe he thinks that the Twilight Drake's not good enough, and he has to hold off until he can go Nova Giant, for example.
Both Mana Cyclones, again, having been used, PNC really is out of random generation. As double deck count, that's 4 more damage coming down this turn. Oof.
Yeah. Like we were actually talking about last turn, the raiding party, Bloodyface chooses to play just to get the deck count out, push a bit more of damage. He knows there's nothing like Blizzard like we were talking about unless it was randomly generated. And we're going to see the Frost Nova come out now.
Is Khadgar...
Khadgar Conj Calling is a way that PNC could come back in the game. There are several 4-mana taunts. Oh yeah, that is lethal. I didn't even see the SI7 come.
I was so ready for the Conj Calling on the top deck with the
crazy stuff.
With the double Tazdingo from the Khadgar, but nope.
Yeah.
Bloodyface just gets the lethal by holding on to that deck hand the last turn as a combo activator. He perfectly played into the out of drawing the SI7 agent and just winning the game with it. Very nicely done, Bloodyface.
Yeah, I mean, pretty strong start from the Rogue. This is kind of what we expected this deck to do. The whole point is to perform so aggressively that the Mage doesn't have enough time to do anything. We saw that even with a Coin, Arcane Intellect, Mana Cyclone, into second Cyclone, Banana Buffoon. PNC was fighting for the board, it just wasn't good enough.
No, well, very, very well played by Bloodyface. Again, PNC... I think it was the early decisions that ended up being the crucial ones there. On the turn where he just literally went Elemental Evocation, Mana Cyclone, Banana Buffoon, yes, he was clearly going for board tempo. He wanted as much on the board to contest with what Bloodyface had. Maybe it would have been better for him to hold off and play more spells and get more of these random mage spells later on. What do you think?
It's difficult to say. Based on the hand of the Raiding Party Rogue or the Pirate Rogue, whatever you want to call it, they can either be super explosive or have kind of spread out threats like that, and then they just run out of steam. And if they have stuff like Raiding Party, it can be difficult to... It's difficult. The game can pan out a few different ways, where the Rogue just throws a lot of damage at you or develops the threats that they actually do have. And we saw Bloodyface did have exactly the Fairy Dragon into Henge Clan. Turn 4 was a bit weaker, but then he had the green skin. So there was a lot of development, and it can be difficult to deal with that if you don't have something like Ray of Frost. I think PNC took a good line. Unfortunately, the way his hand panned out, he didn't quite have the Ray of Frost to capitalize, and he saved the Frost Nova a little bit too long.
Well, we are going to take a look at the decks that are coming up next, as I've just been informed that PNC has switched to his tertiary deck, as you can see there, which, as you can see with our beautiful key card section, Halftime Scavenger, Rabble Bouncer, and Frost Nova have been added into the deck. What is that going to do to this matchup?
Just a quick note, I think the 2 Frost Novas were also in the primary, but we highlighted as a key card.
Of course.
The Halftime Scavenger helps because it's something that's stealth. The Rogue can't actually interact with it until it attacks, which means that it'll let PNC hopefully get a favorable trade, maybe get the overkill, gain some armor, and then also has the potential to Conjurer's Calling it to get more stuff on the board to help contest.
Bloodyface, the reason we didn't show Bloodyface's deck is because he's stuck with
the primary.
Again, it's got the Fairy Dragon in it. It's very clearly his anti-cyclone.
Exactly, which tells you that that's what he was expecting if his primary is what he wants to stick with against Mage.
Do you think PNC's little substitutions there are going to be enough to make a difference.
The Rabble Bouncers and Halftime Scavengers definitely help in this matchup. It's difficult to say whether or not it will be enough. Sometimes the Rogue can be so quick that the Halftime Scavenger isn't isn't fast enough. But it really depends on how on the state of the Rogue's hand. We see here Bloodyface has a bit of a slower start. No Fairy Dragon this time. He is still on the play. He doesn't have the coin, which is a bit more difficult for the Rogue to deal with. It's kind of a struggle for mages and rogues. It helps a lot when you have the coin because hand size for Rogue, they can activate stuff with the coin.
I'm going to add very quickly that Banana Buffoon, Twilight Drake, and Antonidas were all removed from PNC's deck in the tertiary. So obviously Antonidas far too slow for the Rogue. He just needs to survive in every way that he can. Halftime Scavenger is very interesting. 4 mana 3/5 stealth, overkill, gain some armor.
Yeah, I mean, getting the extra health is very useful. There's not that many ways to gain health in Cyclone Mage. There is Ziliax in the main list and the tertiary list. But other than that, unless you get some really wonky stuff off of Cyclone or some really crazy Conjurer's Calling stuff, that's the only way you can heal. But with Scavenger, this gives him another way of maintaining his health total. PNC taking an aggressive line here where he goes Coin Luna, Evocation Cyclone. Gets a couple spells, but the most important thing is he puts stuff onto the board. Okay, we have suddenly...
More freeze!
PNC has suddenly switched to Freeze Mage.
I mean, I mentioned it in the last game. Every single card that has the word freeze on it for PNC was vital. Last game, it didn't quite work out because he held back the Frost Novas. He took a lot of damage in the process and did end up just losing to the damage that Bloodyface had in his hand. Now, with an extra Cone of Cold and an extra Blizzard, maybe he'll be willing to play these freeze effects a little bit more freely.
Yeah, definitely. And I do like PNC playing very aggressively here with the cards he has. Generally, there are very few options the Cyclone Mage can take to try and fight for board. And Stargazer Luna is one of those options. And to supplement that, PNC also went with the Elemental Evocation Cyclone, which you might think, well, he only got 2 spells off of it. Is that even good? Well, it's not that he got 2 spells. It's that he's ahead on board now against a deck that is board-centric and tries to end the game very quickly with their early aggression. So if you can stall the game out, the Cyclone Mage is often in a better spot. The later goes on, the more likely they can eke out a win.
We mentioned before as well that we think Bloodyface is prepared very, very well for this matchup. PNC, I believe, prepared to face against Warriors because Firebat has played a lot of Warrior in the past. Firebat is PNC's other opponent. Bloodyface actually brought Warrior to Vegas. So you can definitely see why PNC would think, I need to bring a deck that's going to beat Warriors today.
Yeah, definitely. Which is why we saw Twilight Drake in the primary list. It's been cut now because, as we see, he's facing a more aggressive deck. But yeah, some small techs and choices, even the deck choices themselves. Perhaps PNC might have chosen a different deck if he thought that Bloodyface and Firebat were going to go a different route.
PNC is having to make the decision now. I mean, Luna makes this even more complicated because of Luna, Magic Trick becomes very tempting. But even without the Magic Trick, like Banana Buffoon, again, body on the board, you know, PNC really valued that in the last game. There's no reason that game plan would have changed, and so he does go ahead and
I also like Bloodyface holding back the Dreadcrusher last turn. He had 1 mana left over, so he could have played it. But this way he can save it to activate SI7 Agent, which means that he can clear the Luna if there were something like a Frostbolt or Freeze command for PNC that would stop the Dreadcrusher from connecting.
Yeah, that's great. We're really seeing the effects of the Raiding Party nerf now for Bloodyface. If that cost 3 mana, he would have had the chance to play it ages ago, really.
So definitely, the deck has lost a bit of oomph, but it seems to be powerful enough to warrant Bloodyface bringing it. This Rabble Bouncer, a bit too expensive right now for PNC. Could come in, it comes in handy a lot when miscreen stuff happens and then lackeys start hitting the board because it becomes very cheap. Obviously, you can Conjurer's Calling it because it initially costs 7 mana, but even a 2/7 body is pretty hefty and difficult for aggro to get through.
Halftime Scavenger obviously is an option.
Yep.
Though I said this to you yesterday, one of the problems with that card in this matchup is everything's a 3/3. It has 3 attack and its effect is overkill. So
even if you don't get the overkill, it's still nice having a value trade and the potential to Conjurer's Calling it. You could even invest something like a ping. To whittle down, like say, the Dreadcrusher to 2 health so that the overkill does happen. Or you could preemptively train the Banana Buffoon here. But in general, you're right, against Rogue with some of the 3 health minions, the Scavenger doesn't always get the overkill. There's still other ways you can get through it, like Banana Buffoon or... PNC deciding if he wants to bump this in to get the overkill effect so that he doesn't have to ping next turn if he wants the armor.
Oh, or even he could just ping the 3-1 next turn and then trade the halftime into the 3-3, right? It's just another way of...
Well, it depends if he wants to spend the mana next turn, and if he thinks the Banana Buffoon is going to be useful enough to stick around and have Bloody Face attack into it, or if he wants to preemptively do that and say, the Scavenger's connecting, I want to spend 5 mana next turn not pinging.
PNC has a lot of cute things set up, actually, because, I mean, Cone of Cold next turn just eliminates the Dread Corsair.
Yep.
It weakens the SS7, allowing for the overkill effect. The bananas, buffing up the halftime scavenger, is something else that's quite tempting. As I see my co-caster here loading up Hearthstone himself.
I don't know what you're talking about, Dan.
You got an opponent?
What are you talking about? We're casting.
Ah, my mistake.
So many options.
There are a few options here for Bloody Face. Green skin much worse when you don't have a weapon equipped. Raiding Party can be activated. Bouncing back the Dread Corsair so that A, PNC can't get the overkill from the halftime scavenger, but also so that it can't be pinged off, I suppose. Not necessarily what you exactly want to be using your Shadow Steps on, but I think this is a clever use from Bloody Face. Lets him activate the Raiding Party without playing out the deckhand, which could also be pinged off. And the deckhand also means that a Rebel Bouncer will be playable this turn if he were to have played it.
Yep, playing around PNC very well. PNC who doesn't really have anything to do this turn. I mean, I assume he has to play the Arcane Intellect here. Bananas are becoming more and more tempting,
yeah,
actually.
I don't hate seeing an Arcane Intellect draw and then seeing what happens. You can't play, PNC can't play a Giant after that.
Play double Banana after this, depending on what gets drawn, obviously. I'm not sure what really is in the deck.
Considering trying to find a Conjurer's Calling, perhaps.
Ooh, Frostbolt's not bad.
If PNC, I kind of like this. If PNC, there's not much PNC can draw from his deck with the Arcane Intellect that'll let him do something impactful this turn. So discovering with the Magic Trick here gives him the option to perhaps find Conjurer's Calling, which means he can take the trade, Conjurer's Calling, and sort of like preset the board to deal with Bloody Face's Dread Corsair next turn with the Waggle Pick. He could also Banana here to deal with the SI7 agent, but even with 2 bananas, the Scavenger would have 7 health, which means it would still die to the SI7 agent plus the swing of the Waggle Pick.
Ends up with just a simple Frostbolt and Ping Plane. Doesn't even look too happy about that right now.
It feels weird because PNC isn't developing much, but there's not much he can develop. So I kind of like this, protecting the Scavenger, saying, I can deal with the SI7 agent just from hand, and maybe we hold on to the Scavenger. Perhaps next turn, the Arcane Intellect can be used in conjunction with the Conjurer's Calling if it's drawn from the 3 cards.
I feel as though that's the sort of turn where really PNC would have liked 10 minutes to think about it. You know, like, I mean, you could tell the rope completely burned out almost. Like, there was a lot of maths going on in his head, a lot of probabilities, you know, and he's still just... I'm not convinced that he's convinced that was necessarily the right play.
It's difficult to find right plays when there's not obvious options.
Yes.
When it's something like you have a Giant, it's 5 mana, you're like, I can play this right now, I'm not under a lot of pressure. Sure, pretty easy decision, but when it's like, okay, I have Arcane Intellect, I can't play anything if I draw it. If I draw Conjurer's Calling, there's not much I can play. I can play the 1 Frostbolt if I draw it from my deck. Otherwise, what else am I drawing for? Can I draw now so that I can play something else next turn? Perhaps if I have a Giant, I can play it, but not the Conjurer's Calling because I don't have a full hand. There's a lot of stuff to kind of think about with the Cyclone Mage when your hand isn't quite obvious.
Yep. And now it's... Cone of Cold's really awkward now, thanks to Bloody Face's great positioning.
Yeah.
With the Fairy Dragon playing around that very nicely.
Good nod to Bloody Face. Played around exactly Cone of Cold.
I guess PNC could Blizzard on over this. Yeah, he's going to just Blizzard it. Still tempted to leave the halftime scavenger stealth. Doesn't feel like killing the 3-1 and gaining the armor.
I'd like to hold this if I was PNC. You have the Cone of Cold next turn, which will deal with the 1 Fairy Dragon's gone. So Cone of Cold will guaranteed either freeze or kill 3 things next turn.
Yep. Hench Clan Thug, Captain Greenskin. A lot of damage, actually, stacking up in Bloody Face's hand. The deckhand's 4 damage. That's 6 damage if the Waggle Pick gets swung, and then 10 with the Waggle Pick. So Bloody Face halfway there just this turn. Oh, no, sorry, of course. The Waggle Pick could bounce one of the Frozen Corsairs, so that's not guaranteed. In that case, just Greenskin buffing up the Waggle Pick and swinging 5 to the face.
I don't hate that. PNC is not running any weapon removal in this deck. No Harrison, no Ooze. So the greenskin definitely guarantees at least an extra, what is that, 6 damage. One's full swing from the Waggle Pick at 5 attack, and then the extra +1 attack this turn.
Choose soon.
Drink up the army!
Does go for the Waggle Pick here. Throws in a deckhand as well. I don't want to see it plays around Cone of Cold a little bit, but having 4 minions does help because the Cone of Cold doesn't hit everything.
Yeah.
This
he
might
could pick.
ooh, this might be a turn where we actually see PNC go in for the Rabble Bouncer. With Rabble Bouncer and Cone of Cold, you can freeze the greens. There's even better. So you can either, from PNC side, Rabble Bouncer, Cone of Cold to freeze the greenskin, kill the deckhand and one of the Dread Corsairs, trade off the Scavenger. Or you can choose to use the Cone of Cold to deal 1 damage to all 3 1-health minions here. And then leave the greenskin up. But then the Scavenger doesn't do too much.
Scavenger's seeming a little bit awkward this game so far. It's just been sat there since turn 4.
Fair.
It needs to do something at some point. I think you're right about the Rabble Bouncer. I hadn't really thought about that until you said it, but yeah, like
This
now
might
is
be the line, yeah.
now is the time to play a 3-mana 2/7 with Taunt.
I like this a lot, and I do like Cone of Colding the South Sea deckhand here. Interesting. Is PNC perhaps going for Conjurer's Calling? He could also Nova here.
Yeah,
Make it difficult for him, for bloodyface to deal with the Rabble Bouncer.
yeah, well, and also the Scavenger, right? Like the Scavenger now could potentially get another 3 armor next turn.
Yeah, definitely.
Like you said, Conjurer's Calling has now been picked up, and if the Rabble Bouncer survives, then that's 2/7 drops.
The thing is, if PNC does Conjurer's Calling the Rabble Bouncer and doesn't hit something like Tunnel Blaster, Monty Warbear, or some other taunts, bloodyface could just take that opportunity and deal the remaining damage. PNC's not on a lot of life right now.
He's not. Bloodyface, he's got so much damage, but it's also awkward because of the frozen minions. Like, the moment... If a deckhand got bounced, great, but the fact that it's such a low percentage chance.
Yeah. I think bloodyface does have to kill off this Rabble Bouncer. If there are more freezes, the threat of Conjurer's Calling plus another freeze
Oh, I
would
got
be...
the deckhand back!
It's pretty good. It means bloodyface gets to keep the powerful, the more powerful minions on the board, and having the cheap deck also means that he can just squeeze it in for some extra damage here.
Yeah, he's just gonna go ahead, play
Lets
it.
him kill off the halftime Scavenger.
No more armor.
Prevents PNC from getting any armor, and prevents Conjurer's Calling stuff from happening too.
But again, Bloodyface is finding himself in the position where he has run out of resources. He has the board, like last game, so it's certainly feasible that he can find the last bit of damage, even as PNC does his best to freeze this board over and over. All he has left is a single Cone of Cold. Yes, he's got some card draw, but
There's 1 Nova left in the deck too.
Yeah. I don't think we've seen a single Giant yet from PNC.
No. In the first game, he might have had time to play it, but in this game, I don't think he had much leeway. I like the lines he took with being very aggressive for tempo, and it's very difficult to play Giant when you play your cards out like that. Sometimes the Cyclones get you enough cards back to where the Giant is playable again, but I don't think this would have been one of those games. But that is a good point. Giant has not popped up, and it is on the list. Actually, we haven't seen Sea Giants either. Those are there too.
There are 4 Giants in PNC's deck, of which we have seen 0 Giants.
Supposedly. There are 4 Giants.
Yeah, they just hang out at the bottom of the deck. It's the place to be.
Frostbolt's not bad here. PNC can use Cone of Cold to delay for a turn.
Yep, can draw
Looks like
first.
that might be what he's doing.
I don't like how little time he's going to have to make the next decision. Especially with the Ray of Frost pickup as well. Like, that's not a card that you can think about instantly. But still, with double Ray of Frost now, thanks to the Twin Spell and Frostbolt, PNC has more time and damage if he needs it. It's definitely looking like he can clear up this board. Also, with the Mana Cyclone, you know, Ray of Frost, Mirror Image, Frostbolt, Mana Cyclone, even squeezing a banana there. Like, there's a lot of random
There are
spells.
options, yeah. The images
So
will help a
many
lot.
options.
Mirror Image is a very powerful card against Rogue. It's difficult for them to deal with. I mean, it is 0-2 and it's not threatening, but the point is it can block a lot of damage, giving the mage more time. Okay. Oh, with the evocation.
Okay.
So I think PNC has to recognize immediately that this is a Mana Cyclone turn, which it looks like he is. He's immediately going for their mirror images.
I think that's quite recognizable, yeah.
Right. I've seen some players in the past that, with maybe some less obvious hands, where they think too long about,
Yeah.
do I need a Cyclone here or not? And then they end up running too much. They end up running out of time near the end of the turn, and they don't know what to do with the randomly generated cards they're given.
In all fairness, we do seem to be having that situation right now. We have seen PNC go to the rope quite a few times in this series so far. This is the sort of turn where that could really mess him up a little bit. So I would like to see PNC make a decision and go for it.
I believe he's just thinking how much he wants to commit to the Cyclone and how much mana he can commit as well, on the chance that some other stuff are...
Is he gonna... I thought for a second he
looked like the bananas were going somewhere else.
All right, handful of random mage spells. Let's go. And this is vital because PNC now should easily find something to clear up bloodyface's board. Ice Barrier is health. Another Conjurer's Calling. Power of Creation.
Some good stuff here.
Venomize.
I like the Conjurer's Calling to push a tiny bit more of tempo. Bloodyface is running out of cards, so anything PNC can do to load up the board beforehand to deal with Bloodyface's any minions Bloodyface might have left over, I do like quite a bit. Especially once you've seen the Power of Creation.
I mentioned that we haven't seen a single giant yet by Bloodyface. Now I should mention that we haven't seen a single lackey. Sorry, a giant from PNC. We haven't seen a single lackey from Bloodyface. We haven't seen Evil Miscreant.
No Miscreants anywhere.
Drawn once. Miscreant is arguably the best card in the deck, even since its nerf. So, yeah, Bloodyface needs a Miscreant, or probably more to the point, needs Myra's Unstable Element right now.
I wonder.
That would help quite a bit, yeah. This can be one of the problems with the Raiding Party Rogue. You have much less value generation. You still have some good gas. You have the Raiding Party, obviously. You still have Miscreants. We just haven't seen them. And Myra, so you are a bit more all-in-y. But sometimes you have these hands where the primary aggression just isn't enough. You've gone all in, and it's like, how do I deal this last 13 damage, you know?
This is just a horrible turn. Those mirror images. What do we do to the other one? Does he have to eviscerate Knife Juggler or Venomize? It's so
It's difficult. I don't think Bloodyface will. I think he realizes that he either needs a Myra's or maybe back-to-back Leroy Step or Leroy Vis and possibly get through that way.
Well, Leroy Vis Dagger is 11 damage even now. Like he's close if he draws Leroy. Just sap away the 0-2. But now PNC's board is just about to get a lot better with the second mirror image, which it just dramatically shuts Bloodyface down. I mean, Bloodyface doesn't have Fan of Knives, so like there's no way to get past these mirror images.
Not easily, anyways. Miscreant into some Ethereal Lackey stuff, perhaps.
Yeah, sure. But we're still quite a ways away from that yet. Power of Creation also. I mean, if PNC finds a Taunt minion, he gets Lord of the Arena as an option. Missile Launcher seems a little bit on the risky side.
Probably the taunts to be safe.
Yeah.
The gates are open.
Knife Juggler, MVP.
Yeah, a lot of juggles happening. PNC can consider if he wants to ping the green skin or just go mirror images. I think the images are much safer. And this does set up a sort of impenetrable wall. I mean,
that Knife Juggler.
When the juggler,
I think he's got a laser
the
sight or
juggles,
something.
yeah.
Like it hit every single shot.
I get
Yep, Raiding Party not going to be enough. PNC takes his first game of the series with the tertiary deck. He's back in it, and we are going to go all the way to game 3.
yeah. I mean, it's been in kind of a weird set so far because we haven't seen, like you said, we haven't seen the Giants and Miscreants. A lot of the powerful cards in
The big bombs of the decks are just nowhere to be seen.
We're just playing small Hearthstone.
Small stone.
Yeah, small stone. There you go.
Heroes of Smallcraft?
Perhaps.
I don't know. I like it. Evil Miscreant, nowhere to be seen still. The Giants, exactly. Like, Cyclone Mage, the way you expect it to work is, yes, Mana Cyclone, obviously, it's in the name. But you fill up the hand to summon the Mountain Giant.
Right.
That's sort of what the deck does. And I guess the lackeys aren't quite as important in Bloodyface's Rogue. I believe Miscreant is the only lackey generator. There's
no Cable Rats. This is much more. Cable Rats are more of a value card, which is why we've seen it in stuff like decks that are running Spirit of the Shark, because you can get a lot more value to them. But in an aggressive deck like this, you can't be spending 2 mana for a 1/1.
Well, we are going to be seeing the same decks one more time. No surprise there. There's
Yeah.
no reason to switch decks again. And we are going to get started. Final game of the series. Bloodyface versus PNC. And there's a giant! And a Myra's!
They exist. Okay, so they're in the deck. We've confirmed. PNC recognizing with a hand like Sorcerer's Apprentice, Cyclone, and Evocation, tossing the Giant might be a bit safer because he can take, like we've seen the past 2 games, a much more aggressive tempo-oriented route, which can perhaps stall out the game long enough to prevent Bloodyface from getting the early start he needs. Bloodyface considering if he wants to keep the unstable element. Shadow Step's not something you really want to keep against, especially going first. Deadly
It's
Poison.
so tough because Bloodyface has so many aggressive cards in the deck, and the game plan isn't really wait until turn 5 Myras and win then. The game plan is, you know, go Deckhand into Fairy Dragon, into Hench Clan, into Waggle Pick, and kill him with the attacks. Like it's. But we've seen the last couple games, Bloodyface has struggled on resources, so
Yeah, definitely.
he's going to keep it. Yeah.
I think on the play as well, where it's less likely you have, you're given one less card, obviously, in your mulligan. There is technically a...
No way!
Exist. There is technically a smaller chance that you get the sort of value extension that lets you eke out the game a bit longer.
It's great that as you said that, he drew his value extension.
Yeah, true.
The Evil Whisker.
This with the mirror images draw, this lets PNC make quite possibly the most powerful turn that Cyclone Mage can have against an aggressive deck.
It's a very
Put the mirror
temporary
images to block any damage coming out for the next few turns, other than exactly backstab, which we do see Bloodyface have, but he needs to save it for Evil Miscreant. He does recognize that.
Research project is very awkward. Given, again, the fact that we've seen over the last few games Bloodyface running out of resources. However, as Bloodyface has drawn Myras, Research Project could be deal quite a lot of damage to the opponent.
Definitely. I like this a lot from PNC as well, just saying I'm not using Conjurer's Calling on a Giant, that's not even my hand. Let me throw it out on my 2/2 and try to get some extra chip damage, or even just have more stuff on board to deal with whatever Bloodyface can develop.
Ethereal Lackey and Faceless Lackey, they are the ones that you want. As the Ethereal Lackey. Oh, what spells does Bloodyface even want in this situation? Just more damage, do you think? Eviscerates or more Shadow
Might
Step?
even be thinking... The thing is, PNC has the Conjurer's Calling to be able to pop the Scarabag, which does let him get quite far ahead on the board. Perhaps Bloodyface can consider trying to find a Fan of Knives. Even, ooh, actually, this... Interestingly enough, in a deck like this where you do run Deadly Poisons, Waggle Picks, you could even consider getting Blade Flurry for a case exactly like this where you're falling a bit behind on board because the mage happened to get a very powerful tempo opening. Indeed.
I'm glad that
Well timed.
you, Medivh, and I are all in agreement that this is a...
So the Apprentice dead to the backstab. Banana Buffoon becomes a bit less enticing because PNC can't cheat out the bananas for 0 mana and for example, kill off the Miscreant. But I still think it's fine. You have the Conjurer's Calling in hand. You've seen one backstab already. Conjurer's Calling a 3-drop can give you, as PNC, pretty sizable board. Flame Strike can help too later on.
Banana Buffoon looks like it's going to come in quite handy with the Sorcerer's Apprentice in the hand. And now all of the decisions for Bloodyface is, starting with the Ethereal Lackey.
Yeah, Bloodyface recognizes that immediately needs to figure out, ooh.
Blade Flurry not seeming so bad given the
It's
current
a step up from Necromancer Vial. There's not really any Death Rattles in the deck, and Stolen Steel could be useful, but not as useful as Blade Flurry looks right now.
If he can just find a way of getting rid of that Scarab, then, or maybe PNC gets rid of the Scarab for him, you know, then Deadly Poison Blade Flurry on turn 5 could actually be the board clear that, ironically, it's Bloodyface that needs. You'd expect it to be Bloodyface that's all over the board and PNC searching for a board clear, but there you go.
That's interesting. I was actually talking to, I think Gallon, Lorinda, someone yesterday that exactly this case. What if you actually get Blade Flare in a game and it's relevant as Raiding Party broke? You might see it happen.
Tick that one off your bucket list because it's going to happen, yeah.
Bloodyface playing the Faceless Lackey in the middle on the off chance that a Dire Wolf Alpha comes out, allowing the Miscreant to kill the images in one fell swoop. Bloodyface also preemptively punching here to just get the image out of the way, making sure he can reach the minions behind that next turn. Oh, there's a halftime scavenger on curve. So PNC can decide now if he wants to throw down a banana, clean up some of these small minions, or just develop a scavenger. He could also just Conjurer's Calling the Banana Buffoon. I think it's difficult because you want to just clean up some of these annoying minions like Fairy Dragon and whatnot, maybe Banana, the Bloodfin Raptor to clean up Miscreant so Shadow Step doesn't become an option.
Right.
Maybe Conjurer's Calling on the Banana Buffoon is the way to go.
I was counting damage a minute ago because he got the board. Bloodyface down to 22, but he's nowhere near good enough to actually go anywhere near lethal, or going anywhere even near a lethal setup with Bloodyface's board. So clearing up the board seems sensible, which does mess with the Blade Flurry plan a little bit on Bloodyface's side.
The Scarabag is there to hedge. Oh, the hedge is gone. I mean, from PNC's perspective, you don't expect Blade Flurry to come out from your opponent.
Oh, but they're resistant to the Blade Flurry.
It is, and this also means if the upgradable framebot sticks around, Ziliax could make a very interesting appearance. The Mana Reservoir doesn't actually do too much because obviously it's a zero attack minion. However, with the other banana in hand that PNC saved, it could do something. Yeah.
There's a Flame Strike.
Flame Strike doesn't hurt.
Flame Strike dealing 5 thanks to the Mana Reservoir. But there you go, Blade Flurry does come down. Very relevant indeed. There you go to Galen or Lorinda, or whoever it was that you were talking to. I expect Bloodyface does clear up the mech, and yeah, I mean, for the most part, the 0-3 isn't going to be that
too impactful. There's not that many actual damaging spells in PNC's deck. I mean, the only one is actually Frostbolt, but killing it could potentially play around the 3 random Cyclone cards that PNC received. I believe the Project Flame Strike and Polymorph are what they were.
All right.
But still not top of the priority list. I mean, as the rogue here, you want to stop the mage from having board, which they should have had in the first place.
I think it is about time that we have a little chat about Myra's. But it's a little bit early right now.
It's also kind of scary because from Bloodyface's perspective, spending 5 mana this turn, sure, you draw a bunch of stuff, but the problem is you can't really close out the game in the next 2 or 3 turns. PNC is on 30 health. I think Bloodyface needs to take a couple more turns to develop as much as he can.
And empty his hand as well.
Exactly. And then having more mana also lets you do some stuff after you Myra's.
No, I wanted to bring it up because it's starting to get to that point of the game where it's looking like soon he's going to just have to play it. There's not going to be much choice. I feel like we had this exact same situation last game where his hand is Sap Eviscerate. And it's like, yeah, you need a Myra's. Well, now he's got it.
Well, he's got it, yeah. Kept it in his opening hand.
But it's looking like it might not be enough.
Interesting.
Interesting indeed. I mean, the thing is from PNC's side, there's not a whole lot going on either. Research project isn't necessarily what you want to do, especially when your aggressive opponent has kind of run out of gas. If their turn was Dagger Deadly SI, sure, it did develop a reasonable amount of stuff on the board, but it didn't do too much. You're still at 30. You don't want to give them more resources. But what else are you doing? You can't play Flame Strike yet. Flame Strike would actually be nice here to clean up. I think PNC can afford to take it slow, however. He's not under like a crazy amount of pressure. Ooh, you hate to see that after playing the Deadly Poison last turn, but Bloodyface had to do something with his mana. So it's unfortunate that the Waggle Pick kind of interferes with the Deadly Poison.
Do you think he just plays it now then? Just immediately just overwrites the dagger and...
Probably not. I think this game is... so the thing is, Bloodyface can also tell, okay, PNC doesn't have a whole lot. He could have played... actually, Giant was not exactly playable this turn. Would have been 7 mana.
Okay.
But Bloodyface can see that nothing is being played from PNC's side, so he can take it a bit slower, get some extra swings in. So he's swinging first and developing the Waggle Pick. I like this a lot. Yeah. Launching the Abyss because he has to spend the mana. I like this a lot more. Suddenly, with PNC 19 health, the Myra and the Waggle Pick equipped, the Myers is looking much more enticing.
There's that Ziliax, which had the upgraded framebot stuck to the board, would have been a little bit more damage, a little bit more healing, and a lot more health. That being said, it would have also been very sappable, so I guess it wouldn't have been the end of the world. The problem for Bloodyface here is that the longer this game goes on, the more PNC is going to draw and eventually get those big resources that are very, very defensive. Though PNC doesn't have a handful of options right now for this.
I think from PNC's perspective here, you do just play up the Ziliax, force Bloodyface to use Waggle Swing, waggle pick swings on stuff that isn't your face and stall out the game until you get something like that giant. Because I think the way you lose is exactly Myra's, and if you give your opponent enough time to find Myra's, we already know that Bloodyface has it, but from PNC's perspective, there's not a whole lot going in Bloodyface's hand, so the only way to completely come back into this game is Myra's, so he should play more aggressively because of that, which means I would like him to see him play out something here. I'm fine playing up the Zilliax. You've seen one backstab already. You should just clean the board. If you're scared about taking too much damage, you can also ping the Miscreant and get the extra armor from the Scavenger. But Bloodyface is on, you know, a bit of a... 20 health isn't that safe. I really don't like PNC holding the Scavenger here. I think PNC need to be a bit more aggressive.
Well, it's Myra's turn. There's no option now. With the zero mana card draw, this is it.
It's time to go.
Oh, these aren't... Okay, Leroy's good. Edwin's fine.
Prep. Back to the second backstab as the final card. Okay.
The preps are pretty bad because there's only one sap in the hand, and that's all they can do.
Yeah, I think you, from Bloodyface's perspective, you just jam, prep. You can even throw in the second prep if you want, but I want to see at least one prep here and win.
Yeah. I don't mind the double prep either. Well,
You could consider holding it just in case you need the extra mana with a sap.
Zero mana sap on a Leroy turn sounds pretty good.
Yeah, and the thing is, the Edwin's big enough that if this connects, you're happy, and if you gas it even more, Ray of Frost still stops the damage from coming in, or Frost Nova or something like that.
Yeah, I like this. I guess Bloodyface really has one turn to develop the Hench Clan Thugs if he wants to go that route, and then after that, it's Leroy time. However,
good pickup here.
Giant's a good pickup. Research Project, which has been in PNC's hands since the start of the game.
Yep.
Right now, if cast, it would deal 1 fatigue damage, 2 fatigue damage, and then 3 fatigue damage.
6 damage burst.
Bloodyface draws. That's 6, yeah.
It's nothing to scoff at, and it's only going to go up as the these turns continue onwards. We see PNC will have at least one freeze available with the Frost Nova. So I think he's doing the math on if he can play mirror images for 1 mana.
So after 6, it becomes 10. After 10, it becomes 15. And
yeah,
after
21.
15, it becomes 21, which is lethal, even if he's not doing anything else.
Yeah.
So Frost Nova's 1 guaranteed turn.
There's a couple of things PNC can do here. He can try to just play Polymorph, control the board here, and say, okay, you don't have Leroy Step. Actually, Leroy Step would be 16, not quite enough. You would need Leroy Step and then something else. Or you can take a slower option where he does something like a Frost Nova. But I think I do like the Polymorph here. You can even throw the mirror image
I
just
like
to
the mirror
stop
image
the damage coming in. But if you're doing that,
You swing the half-time scab.
yeah, of course. And the thing is, if PNC had swung this earlier, you'd be in a better spot here.
I am really surprised to see the Frost Nova. I thought that was being held onto.
I believe he said, first of all, it blocks the Waggle Pick.
Okay.
It means he can't, Bloodyface can't go something like Leroy Waggle Pick and like, hit the Shadow Step effect on the Leroy. Well, he still can, but it's going to hit mirror images. This also sets a PNC for Flame Strike. The biggest thing in Bloodyface's deck was that Edwin. Everything else is 3-4 health. So Flame Strike clears anything else. So just stop making sure that this board can hit the images, and that the only thing that can hit the images is either the other deck hand. You've seen both stabs. And the Waggle Pick, it stops a lot of direct damage here, and it sets up for your Flame Strike, which I kind of do like.
Who goes there?
This is going to be rough. From Bloodyface's perspective, I think this is the best play.
Yeah.
Push as much as you can and say, all right, well, opponent has 4 cards in hand, what's it going to do against this board? But this is exactly what PNC was setting up for.
Those 2 cards on PNC's left, on the left there,
Yeah.
the ones that have been held onto right from the beginning of the game, the Mana Cyclone cards, both of them together, are just going to end Bloodyface's hopes very soon.
I definitely don't like that PNC played this a little too slow with halftime Scavenger. That Scavenger could have attacked 2 to 3 times, or even if it didn't get extra attacks in, it would have at least requested Bloodyface, hey, you know, answer this.
It's not had any impact on the game, has it?
Right.
It's been 4 mana do nothing.
True. Last game it didn't do a whole lot, but this game I feel like it could have, and PNC held back a bit. It looks like it is paying off. Because, why is that 5 damage? Oh, it's probably still showing a bug because of the mana reservoir earlier.
Oh, okay.
Unless PNC chose the plus spell damage option between rounds. You solo adventure players are going to get that one. Interesting indeed.
That was very weird.
So this Flame Strike doesn't completely shut out Bloodyface. There is still a Waggle Pick and Leroy. That's a lot of damage. And even with a Research Project, that's going to be... How much fatigue damage did Bloodyface just take?
I think that was just the first.
The first one. So it's still 2, 3, 4, so it's 9. Even 1 extra turn will get you up to 14.
Yeah.
So Bloodyface does have time. Yeah.
And that 3 damage could be very valuable. There you go, 15 health left. Still got a minion on the board. Bloodyface can't do anything about this.
3, 4, 5. This is going to be lethal from PNC next turn. So the next 2 ticks of fatigue from Research Project will be 3, 4, that's 7. And then the natural draw will be an extra 5, which is 12. And the ping from PNC will close out the game if he sees it.
Amazing. Not how we expected the series to go.
Definitely. So Bloodyface does have, technically from his perspective, an out here. If he goes Waggle Pick, Prep Sap, and then next turn sets up... Actually, doesn't have to Prep Sap. He can go Waggle Pick, Sap. That's 8 damage from the pick. And then the Leer next turn could be an extra 12. So that is 20 damage if PNC has no way to interact with anything and doesn't kill him.
So to sum up, Cone of Cold from a Mana Cyclone, a Blizzard from a Mana Cyclone, a Polymorph from a Mana Cyclone, a Research Project from a Mana Cyclone, and the Flame Strike from a Mana Cyclone across the last 2 games.
They've
been pretty good for
impactful.
PNC.
The thing is, the average mage card is pretty... Sorry, the average mage spell is very good.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily used in the same way. Like, they all have very specific uses. They're very conditional. But on average, if you try to get 3 or 4 different spells, chances are you're going to have one that at some point in the game will be useful. And we've seen PNC, obviously he's held the Research Project and Flame Strike for a long time, and they've been dead for a long time. But with those cards in hand, PNC can kind of tailor the rest of the game to those cards that were generated. Like, with the Research Project, he definitely could have taken a slower line here by going for that Polymorph Frost Nova.
Bloodyface really not happy about that Research Project, as you can see, as he takes that last 5 fatigue damage, and PNC takes the series. He had an unfavored matchup, but does take that 2-1 victory thanks to his secondary, or tertiary deck, rather. Wow, great performance.
Definitely. I mean, even that last game, I was going to say the Rogue has kind of been struggling to have those kind of powerful games. Turn 1 was great. We saw it very aggressive, like just out of the gates. But game 2 and 3, it seemed a bit lacking. Even with Myra's, it just didn't quite get there. The Cyclone Mage was able to pull it out.
Yeah, we were... You know, we disagreed a little bit with a couple of the things that PNC, specifically, I think the usage of the halftime scavenger. Yeah, it sort of paid off in the end. It dealt that last little bit of vital damage needed for lethal, but had it been played a little bit earlier, maybe he wouldn't have needed to play quite so defensively. Either way, it's cool to see the Mage win that matchup. I believe that we are going to have a little chat with PNC and see how he feels about that series. PNC, congratulations for that win. Can you tell me, first and foremost, why did you decide to bring the Mage this week?
Hey Dan, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
We can hear you.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what to play, and I don't know, I feel really comfortable with Mage, so I just decided to bring it, but I don't think it was the best bring this week.
So it wasn't in response to what your opponents have brought in previous weeks or anything?
Nah, I didn't have much time to prepare after Vegas, and I don't know, I just decided to go what I feel comfortable with, and yeah, that's why I'm playing Mage.
Yeah, that makes sense. Mage is definitely powerful right now. We've seen in all 3 games, actually, in this set, you were very aggressive with your Sorcerer's Apprentice, and we saw in one of those games you coined out Stargazer Luna as well. I really liked how you played like that. Do you tempo that out in all the matchups, or did you think it was specifically against Rogue you needed more of a foothold in the game?
Well, I have to say I had a really good hand in all 3 games, and yeah, I wasn't expecting to win against the aggro Rogue, and like in practice I thought it was very unfavored, but I just draw very good hands every game, and I don't know, I think I was playing minions early game and trying to fight for the board. It seemed fine.
Yeah, definitely looked like it paid off.
Yeah, quite honestly, we weren't expecting you to win against the aggro rogue either, so congratulations.
Yeah, we had the Fairy Dragons in primary deck, so...
Right, exactly. Yeah. It seemed that everything was against you in this one. I'd love to hear a little bit about your philosophy with the halftime scavenger, because we were wondering if you were being a little bit too defensive for it, and maybe not attacking with it quickly enough. What do you think about that card?
Yeah, I'm not satisfied with the way I played, but I think I should have attacked before that. But after I was committed to that, I just kept doing it for some reason. I don't know. But so yeah, so the Scavenger Hyena is a tech card that Psycho was playing. He thinks it's really good against Rogue, so yeah, just always trust Psycho.
Well, it helped in the end, right? It dealt that last little bit of vital damage. Congratulations, PNC. That was a great series to watch, and good luck later in the week.
Okay, thank you.
Well, there you go. PNC himself said he wasn't necessarily that satisfied with the way that he played the halftime scavenger, which is cool to see, because like it shows that everyone's still learning. We're learning, they're learning, It's great to see everyone just improving at Hearthstone throughout the weeks.
Yeah, also Scavenger isn't a card that's been included in too many Cyclone lists, so it's possible that, like you said, PNC just come back from Vegas, the Masters Tour last week, which was a blast, by the way. But when you can't practice with every single card available in the collection, it's hard when you tech one in because you think it's good, and then you don't have as many games under your belt. With, for example, like Giant, we've seen that in every Cyclone list. So when you see a Giant, you're like, okay, I know what to do this. Easy. But yeah.
We have still got 4 series coming up today here in America's Grandmasters. We're going to have a very short break, but after that, we're going to have Frozen versus former world champion Firebat. So don't go anywhere. More America's Grandmasters coming up.